Entertainment Nights, fellow travelers along the path of the beam. I am known on this level of the tower as Jaime and Fuego, and if it please you, join me here for a bit of palaver on Hail to Stephen King. That is Reezy, everybody. It's been far too long. I did one of these videos in September for Sai King's birthday, and then in October, I had the chance to convene with Cecil to discuss the new Salem's Lot that Gary Dauberman did, which I had some issues with, unfortunately. But yes, guys, after over 300 episodes on the horror show, Hail to Stephen King, it migrated over here to my personal channel, Enfuegotainment, when I was returning to Arizona State to study film and media for a bachelor's after getting an audio production degree like 15 years ago. Decided to go back to school. But yeah, so these episodes are intermittent, they're kind of sporadic, but of course I had to make some time with midterms just getting done to talk about Never Flinch, which, as I am just taking a little double check here on the Entertainment Weekly, which is where King, for the last number of his releases with Simon & Schuster, that seems to be where he makes the official announcement. So you had like Lil Jas and, you know, Losers Club, some of the more you know, prominent of the King coverers breaking the news about this a little while back, but I was holding off on a video until we got like the official release, some official artwork, and all of that jazz. Excusez-moi. But yeah, so this has officially been dated. We have some cover art that I will be showing when I read the excerpt, which was also released in the Entertainment Weekly article, which went up yesterday, I believe. So November 18th was the official release date, you know, with like the press release put out in the story on Entertainment Weekly and whatnot. But yeah, guys, today being November 19th, happy 19, everybody, it seemed very appropriate for me to attempt and make a little bit of time to talk about this. So, having read every single Stephen King book in its published order, which was an undertaking that took over 7 years, but what a journey along that path of the beam it was, incredible. I've been, with my graduation coming next year, I've been debating when this program comes back full-time, as opposed to that sort of intermittent, sporadic nature that I had mentioned, how I want to approach it. There's still some things bouncing around in my head. Definitely going to do some winter coverage when I'm on, you know, winter break, which is a number of weeks for, like, you know, Christmas and whatnot before things get started back up in the spring. But yeah, so there's ideas bouncing around, but most importantly, we now have an official date for the next Sai King book, which I, just to double check, believe is May 27th of 2025. That's the good news. New Sai King. That is the good news. The debatable news, unfortunately, is how everybody is going to feel about the fact that we are getting our 7th Holly book. And it's crazy to think about the fact that 10 years ago, when this baby came out in June of 2014, Mr. Mercedes, when Holly Gibney made her debut, that we would now 10 years later be, well, it'll be almost 11 years later by the time that next book comes out, Never Flinch. But yeah, guys, that, you know, she is second only to the members of Roland's Ka-Tet, you know, as far as most appearances. And it's really funny how the Midwest, I'm trying to remember if it's Ohio specifically, because I believe I know they changed it for The Outsider, which was the 4th appearance of Gibney, for the actual state that the story took place in. But especially after the way Shizzle went crazy, you know, spoilers with, you know, cannibal professors and whatnot, in the Holly book, which was the release right before You Like It Darker, it's like, okay, King, like, this is like bordering Castle Rock at this particular point, and just Maine in general in King's earlier years, as far as just tons of crazoid shit going down in the same place. Now, I'll give it a little bit more of a pass because the Mr. Mercedes trilogy, which I adore the first 2 parts of, not as big on End of Watch, the finale to it, but, and if you guys haven't seen the television series with Brendan Gleeson, mind blown. I believe it still streams on Peacock, if I'm not mistaken, originally on the AT&T Audience Network, but that show kicks ass, man. It might even, in my estimation, be one of those few adaptations that is superior to the source material. I like the way that they flip-flopped Finders Keepers and End of Watch as far as the chronology of the television series went. I really feel like that was a solid choice by Jack Bender, who is doing the new King series, The Institute, which is like all but confirmed. Mary Louise Parker, even, who was on the first season of Mr. Mercedes, coming back, which is pretty cool. So I'm hopeful about that. I did, for King's birthday, like a full preview of all the things in the upcoming pipeline, which is like, we've got The Monkey early next year, based on the short story from Skeleton Crew, The Institute being developed, the new book here, and everything. But Welcome to Derry, who can forget that? But the order of the day is obviously Never Flinch, and the 7th appearance of Holly Gibney. I really like Holly as a character. I genuinely do. And while there was, you know, some critics of the actual book itself, Holly, because it was King injecting a lot of his personal politics in it, I'm a registered independent, so I don't really fall on either side of, you know, the recent zaniness that I'm so glad is over, at least for now, as far as elections at least and stuff like that go. But yeah, guys, I don't have much of a stake in that, but King is very opinionated within his politics. As of this filming, he decided to finally peace out on Twitter, X, whatever the hell we're calling it at this particular point. He had been real antagonistic with Muskie for a while, and I'm assuming with how that platform has changed significantly, that had a lot to do with King deciding to migrate over to Threads, which is apparently where he is now. I know Blue Sky is some other social media, whatever, that people are talking about. The toxicity of social media. The toxicity of social media. It's so shitty. Yeah, I've been off of social media for a while. I kind of jump back on here and there, but I have a very love-hate relationship with it, especially with having to dedicate so much more time to school. But back to Never Flinch, 7th story with Holly. I know some people are burnt out on Holly. To be completely candid, I kind of am. That's why I liked, that's why I really loved, in a lot of ways, You Like It Darker. I didn't want to double down on the like. But that's why I enjoyed You Like It Darker so much, because it was, thankfully, a detour. And it was a very exceptional one at times at that. Now, a lot of the stories I'd read before, but still the OGs were really great. And yeah, great collection. I was very impressed with it, even though it kind of felt like a greatest hits of sorts, and some of the ideas being recycled. But yeah, we do have another King book in May. He puts something out pretty much every year at this point, sometimes 2 times a year, since the King Assance of 17. But yeah, guys, another Holly story. Now, we don't know how much she is going to be involved in this, but as you guys take a slow down look at the cover art here, and you can see that we've got, you know, kind of the justice sort of angle to the cover art and everything here. But let's read what we have as far as the synopsis here from Entertainment Weekly. Okay, so Stephen King has long been the master of horror, and he returns with another terrifying read, Never Flinch, which will hit shelves on May 27, 25. EW can exclusively share the first excerpt from the novel, told from the perspective of the mysterious Trig, a man with vengeance on his mind. Never Flinch features intertwining storylines, one about a killer on a diabolical revenge mission, and another about a vigilante stalking a feminist celebrity speaker. The novel features a host of familiar characters, including King's beloved Holly Gibney and gospel singer Sister Bessie, as well as riveting new faces that include a villain addicted to murder. Yeah, that sounds a villain addicted to murder. That kind of sounds cliched. I'm not gonna lie, everybody. Okay, so here's the official excerpt from Never Flinch, and it is entitled Trig 1. So I'm assuming this is going to be from his personal perspective. So let's rock some of the prose for the El Rey aficionados. March, and the weather's miserable. The Straight Circle meets in the basement of the Buell Street Methodist Church every weekday from 4 to 5 p.m. It's technically a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, but plenty of alcoholics also attend. Straight Circle is usually packed. It's calendar spring, has been for almost a week, but in Buckeye City, sometimes known as the second mistake on the lake, Cleveland being the first, actual spring comes late. When the meeting lets out, a fine drizzle is hanging in the air. By nightfall, it will thicken and turn to sleet. 2 or 3 dozen attendees gather near the butt can by the entrance and light up, because freebasing nicotine is one of 2 addictions left to them, and after an hour in the basement, they need that hit. Others, the majority, turn right and head for the Flame, a coffee shop a block down. Coffee is the other addiction they can still indulge. One man is stopped by Reverend Mike, who also attends this meeting and many others on a regular basis. The Rev is a recovering opioid addict. In meetings, he attends 2 or 3 every day, weekends included. He introduces himself by saying, "I love God, but otherwise, I'm just another fiend." This always gets nods and murmurs of approval, although some old-timers find him a bit tiresome. They call him Big Book Mike for his habit of quoting verbatim long passages from the AA handbook. Now the Rev gives the man a soul shake. "Not used to seeing you around these parts, Trig. You must live upstate." Trig doesn't, but says so. He has his reasons for going to meetings out of the city where recognition is unlikely. But today was an emergency. He had a meeting or drink, and after taking the first drink, all choices would be gone. He knows this from personal experience. Mike puts a hand on the other man's shoulder. "In your share, Trig. You sounded upset." Trig is a childhood nickname. It's how he introduces himself at the start of meetings. Even at out-of-town AA and NA, he rarely speaks other than that initial identification. In tag team meetings, he mostly says, "I just want to listen today." But this afternoon, he raised his hand. "I'm Trig, and I'm an alcoholic." "Hi, Trig," the group responded. They're in the basement instead of the church, but there's still that revival meeting call and response. Straight Circle is, in fact, the church of the crashed and burned. I just want to say that I'm pretty shaken up today. I don't want to say any more, but I had to share that much. That's all I've got. There were murmurs of thanks. Trig and hang in there and keep coming back. Now Trig tells the Rev he's upset because he found out he lost someone he knew. The Rev asks for more details, prize for them actually, but all Trig will say is that the person he's mourning died in lockup. "I'll pray for him," the Rev says. "Thanks, Mike." Trig starts away, but not toward the flame. He walks 3 blocks and climbs the steps to the public library. He needs to sit and think about the man who died on Saturday. Who was murdered on Saturday. Was shanked on Saturday in a prison shower. He finds a vacant chair in the periodicals room and picks up a copy of the local paper, just to have something to hold. He opens it to a page 4 story about a lost dog recovered by Jerome Robinson of the Finders Keepers Agency. There's a picture of a smiling and handsome young black man with his arm around some kind of big dog, maybe a Labrador Retriever. The headline is one word: found! Trig stares through it, thinking. His real name was in this same paper 3 years ago, but no one has made the connection between that man and the one who attends out-of-town recovery meetings. Why would they? Even if there had also been a picture of him, which there wasn't. That man had a slightly graying beard and wore contacts. His version is clean-shaven, wears glasses, and looks younger. Quitting the booze will do that. He likes the idea of being someone new. It also weighs on him. That is the paradox he lives with. That, and thinking about his father, which he does more and more frequently these days. Let it go, he thinks. Forget it. That is on March 24th. Forgetting lasts just 13 days. 2. On April 6th, Trig sits in the same periodicals room chair, staring at the feature story in today's Sunday paper. The headline doesn't just speak, it shouts. "Buckeye Brandon, murdered prison inmate, may have been innocent." Trig has read the feature, and he listened to Buckeye Brandon's podcast 3 times. It was a self-proclaimed outlaw of the airwaves who broke the story, and according to Buckeye, there was no may have been about it. Is the story true? Trig thinks that. Given the source, it must be. "What you're thinking of doing is crazy," he tells himself, which is true. "If you do it, you can never go back," he tells himself. That's also true. That's also true. "Once you start, you must keep on," he tells himself. And that's truest of all. His father's mantra. You have to push through to the bitter end. No flinching, no turning away. And what would it be like? What would it be like for him to do such things? He needs to consider some more. Not just to get clarity on what he's thinking of doing, but to put a space of time between what he found out courtesy of Buckeye Brandon, also this feature article, and the acts, the horrors he may commit. So no one will make the connection. He finds himself remembering the headline about the young man who recovered the stolen dog. It was simplicity itself. Found! All Trig can think about is what he's lost, what he did, and the amends he must make. Alright guys, so there you have it. Some internal monologue going down with this Trig character. I must admit, I'm, especially with kind of the parental, references and whatnot, I'm getting some Brady Hartsfield. And I gotta say, I have been, as a long-time constant reader at this particular point, I have definitely been getting in a lot of ways King on the retread at his age a little bit, and this is just personal opinion, everybody, obviously. The fact that in this, besides this, these intertwining stories, the fact that we have Izzy coming back, which is cool. Izzy was one of those characters, so Bill, for those who don't essentially know, so Bill Hodges, after he retired from the force, I believe Dixon was the name of his former partner, Pete Dixon. So Pete Dixon, after Hodges retired in the Mr. Mercedes trilogy, got another partner, which her name was Izzy. And so this story is going to reconnect with her. I believe Dixon ended up retiring, and so Izzy was like one of the main investigators in some of the later books that Holly was involved in. And so Izzy goes to consult Holly for some help on trying to solve these murders that this Trig guy is obviously responsible for. And so, yeah, once again, a lot of just bad stroke of luck in this particular area of the Midwest, everybody. But Izzy was kind of at odds with Holly, so it's in parts of, these stories that Gibney was involved in. And so it's interesting that she would consult her. But especially with the whole going after the feminist speaker thing, I'm getting major echoes of an unadapted King book, Insomnia, and the fact that that was about the pro-abortion woman and the attempted assassination stuff with her. So I'm getting major echoes of Insomnia, a little bit of Brady with the Trig character from the Mr. Mercedes trilogy and stuff. And so I'm hopeful that King can inject enough new ideas into the proceedings here to really make it not feel as familiar, kind of keep me on my toes a little bit more. But I don't know, always approach with optimism, but not too much expectation. Hope for the best, brace yourself for the worst. Not that I really, even the King books that I've kind of crapped on at times, my two least favorites being, oh gosh, I mean, Dreamcatcher, I've been, pretty unkind to, Bag of Bones, whatever. Elevation, I also am not the biggest fan of. Just, it was really just the fact that so many of these new books, and the fact that King is so enamored with Holly at this particular point, but he's been teasing a return to the Path of the Beam and the Tower. I still assume that that is more so from him consulting with Mike Flanagan in the development of the series that old Flanagan's been working on for a while. And gosh, I cannot wait for The Life of Chuckman. It won the top award at the Toronto International Film Festival at TIFF. So we're not getting it until next year. Neon acquired it, so extremely stoked about that. Tom Hiddleston, Mark Hamill, Karen Gillan. I mean, there's so many great actors in that. And I loved that story from If It Bleeds, which, the title story there being another one with Gibney. So King just can't get away from Gibney, and I doubt this is the last time, but I really wish that he would give her a little bit more of a vacation and, maybe another book or two and then return to her. But if he does do another Tower book, I would not be shocked, as I have said on this program previously, if he gets her in there somewhere, if she becomes almost like a Brodigan did or like a Dinky or something, he's going to get her in there at some particular point. I really, truly feel it. King has also been teasing the third and final in the Talisman, Black House trilogy, the Jack Sawyer trilogy. Obviously, dearly departed Peter Straub, not involved in the process anymore, but they had exchanged an extensive amount of notes about what they wanted to do with that third and final entry in the trilogy. So that's exciting, but yeah, guys, this is not going to be one of the longest King videos, obviously. I just really wanted to give some thoughts and impressions about this. I'm really looking forward to potentially seeing much more of a focus on the Izzy character, not have her be just this little supporting person popping in here or there like she had been previously. And she did soften up after a while with Holly, if I recall correctly, even though it's been a little while since I've read those books, a couple years now. So, yeah, guys, what do you think about, first and foremost, another Holly book? I've, Lou Sitzma from the King podcast, I had the pleasure of having him on a Stephen King panel that I did for FearCon a few years ago during the pandemic, so that was great. Also, shout out to Mike from Mike's Book Reviews, one of my partners along the Path of the Beam as well. Great guy. Excellent book channel if you guys are into fantasy and things of that nature. He is of the utmost prowess when it comes to, just a genre that I have only just barely dipped my little toe into. Mike is the man, not just with King stuff, but with just all of the different fantasy, sort of book series that you guys could think of. But yeah, if I recall correctly, Mike is a little more like me. He's kind of ho-hum on just more Holly, more Holly, more Holly. But yeah, guys, what do you think? Once again, I will just work my way back to that. Anytime there's a new Sai King book that is announced, I'm super stoked. But once again, echoes of Insomnia a little bit. Echoes of the Mr. Mercedes trilogy. I don't know. Holly is obviously he's enamored with her. She is kind of his muse as far as characters go. And while I do really like the character, I love her eccentricities, and I really did like the Holly book quite a bit. But I thought that was going to be, almost like a swan song, at least for the time being, of her. I kind of do have a suspicion that maybe she will be more on the supporting side of things, but as you guys saw, we already have a Jerome reference. I would imagine his sister will be mentioned. I mean, we're going to get a lot of that flavor because King just really likes returning to these characters, to this part of the country, and I don't know, will we get a supernatural element to this? I'm really curious. My gut tells me no, we didn't even get anything supernatural with the Mercedes trilogy until the third book with End of Watch, but even that had some scientific basis behind it as far as King's explanation for what ended up happening eventually with Brady. So, no say, guys, I really don't know, but once again, May 27th, Never Flinch. That is the 2025 release, at least for now, that we're aware of, that Sai King is going to be unleashing upon all of his constant readers across the planet. So I extend a grande gracias. I've been Jaime and Fuego, and well, even though I'm not frequently on them as much anymore, you can find me on all social media sectors and lots of older things, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I've been thinking about getting on the Threads or the Blue Sky or something else, but until school is completely done in May of next year, I just don't really know. I don't really have much time, and plus I do suffer from the disillusionment of the popularity party and also that toxicity of social media that I mentioned earlier. So I don't know, guys, that's just kind of how I feel about it. But I still really like doing videos like this, and I wish I had more time for them. Before the end of the year, I would love to do something celebrating the 50 years since the publication of Carrie. I also wanted to do kind of a video about the enduring popularity of Salem's Lot and the fact that even though I had issues with the Gary Doberman, apparently they cut it down from like 3 hours, which is just nuts to me. I would love to see the full cut of that because it's an adaptation that just, the reason it had been a miniseries 2 previous times was because of the fact that there's so much rich character stuff going down in it. I talk about it on our review on the Horror Show channel, youtube.com/The Horror Show channel. That's where you can see the kind of moonlighting return of Hail to Stephen King, myself, and Cecil reviewing that new version of Salem's Lot. But that is going to do it, everybody. If you haven't read the introduction to Mr. Mercedes, bada blinger, right here, the introduction of Holly Gibney as a character, I was actually planning a Holly countdown of counting down the ranking of sorts of the Holly books, and then when King announces this, I'm just like, well, I guess I'm pushing that video to next year, and then even then, will it be just kind of premature to do another one when he's probably, I guess we'll have to see what happens with the Holly character, or potentially 2, who the hell knows, but I don't really see him killing her off in this because he loves her so much, man. And it really is an extension of King in a lot of ways with how he writes that character. So, in any event, guys, that is going to do it. Time to cut it out, and I extend that grande gracias once more. And yeah, everybody, until the Wheel of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, San Amigos, constant readers, viewers alike, say thank you. I hope that we have been well met in this brief return from yours truly, Fuego, to all of the other worlds than these of Sai King. And I hope that we share more of this palaver sooner rather than later. And until then, remember, as I always say in a reference to all of the years on the Horror Show, which I still will be returning there at some point soon, but stay scared, everybody. And obviously, read Stephen King. I still recommend this because it's probably the best thing involving Holly Gibney because of the fact that we see so much growth from her as a character, and you see over the course of these pages why King fell so much in love with her and keeps wanting to put her in stuff.